Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, there's a story about a college named Gordon College, and it's in the news right now, but it's very much the story of what many universities and other organizations, schools, religious organizations, private schools are going to be facing. Joining us now is Joy Pullman, managing editor of the Federalist and an education research fellow at the Heartland Institute. Hey, Joy, how are you?
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. This is a very, very important topic, and it focuses on really any group that accepts federal funding, and that's just about every education institution you could think of. Talk about Gordon College to begin this conversation.
So the basic story is that Gordon College signed on to a letter. A bunch of organizations asked the president basically to at least include an exemption in an executive order that he was set to issue. They wanted the exemption so they could basically hire people based on their religious beliefs. Or, you know, they wanted the freedom to hire people that were compatible with their religious beliefs. And, of course, the touch point issue here is in sexual freedom. So all the world's greatest religions, you know, have certain sexual ethics, and so Gordon College wanted the freedom to continue upholding that with the kind of people that they hire to represent them. And so by signing on to this letter requesting to continue having that freedom that they, you know, all colleges and education institutions in the United States have had ever since this country began. But Gordon College has been the target of a lot of organizations. So, for example, the local town, they have a contract to maintain one of their historic buildings. The local town canceled their contract with Gordon. The town mayor was labeling them, you know, discrimination, you know, folks, homophobes, all these, you know, terrible epithets for just, you know, again, wanting to have the freedom to continue hiring people that represent what they believe.
All right. Now, is this the executive order that was signed this week by the president regarding gays, lesbians, and transgenders and protecting them? Is that what we're talking about?
That's right. So the executive, so back when they signed on to that letter, it was, you know, expecting.
Right. It was in anticipation of this executive order. Right. And groups like Gordon and others that asked for an exemption, as you alluded to, for their organizations and that had these religiously held beliefs.
That's right. So the executive order basically says federal contracting. So any organization that gets federal money has to follow this executive order President Obama signed. They have to follow, you know, our regulations for hiring. So those include certain regulations. I would argue that sometimes even give preferences to people who have certain sexual practices. And
when it comes to accepting federal funds, it's hard to find an institution of learning that doesn't, private or public, that doesn't accept some kind of federal funds in some way, correct?
Well, that's right, especially in higher education. I mean, so the way that I put it in the Federalist article that I wrote about this for is that the federal government is the biggest sponsor of subprime higher education. So they are the big, you know, we have nationalized our student loan system. So basically, if you get a student loan, chances are that it's from the federal government. So with that money comes control. And since President Obama really seeks to extend the power of the federal government, he's looking for all the ways that he can extend his influence. And one of those is through the control of using the money that the federal government taxes away from us.
Yeah, and you know, you point out in your piece that it's our money. It's their money. It's all of our money, federal money. It's not. It doesn't belong to the government. I mean, they get it from us. But you urge them not to take it, and you even point out, you know, how hard it is. You look at Liberty University of Virginia, Jerry Falwell fame, and how they regularly take Pell Grants, for instance.
Well, right. So Pell Grants, I believe, is the biggest amount of federal higher education program. It's supposed to be for poor kids, but it has been gradually expanded into basically a middle-class entitlement like every federal subsidy tends to do. So the real problem here is that because people are so excited about getting money, they're willing to basically sell their souls for it. And so that is one of the worries that we have here. People need to be very, they need to notice that money doesn't just come off of trees. When you get it from somebody, they're expecting something in return, even if that's a donation or federal government money.
Now, talk about accreditation and how it affects, you're worried about how it affects Gordon here, but also in kindergarten through 12, and states regulate private school curriculum. Talk about accreditation and how, without it, you're dead meat as an institution of learning, and how they control that too, the government.
That's right. So most people don't know about this. I mean, it's pretty obvious that funding comes with a quid pro quo, but it's not clear that accreditation does as well. And so what that is in K-12, it can be both private or state-based. Accreditation says you can grant a diploma, or your classes actually, can go on a transcript. So it's basically, the school typically can't exist without that, because, it's a guarantee that the education has some basic level of quality. So that is a way that states can control the curriculum in private schools. And in higher education, the federal government literally is very intimately involved with the accreditation process. So the federal government, just without having its money but controlling accreditation, has the ability to tell schools literally what they should be teaching and how.
It is very, very eye-opening and very, very frightening. And the biggest fear, people might say, what are they afraid of? That a transvestite's going to come in and want a job? Now, these institutions could still deny. I mean, could still hire who they want. But the danger is, that person who's turned down could claim, well, they didn't hire me because I'm this, I'm that, I'm whatever, and sue them, and that becomes costly, time-consuming, and everything else. Correct?
Well, that's exactly right. And the thing about an education institution is a lot of, especially religious education institutions, have kind of a religious mission. The way that we teach someone and help them become an adult, it's not just, technical fact transmission. It's culture transmission. It's values transmission. So when we teach young people, we are not only, teaching them, how to write an essay, but we're also teaching them about what it means to be a human being. And so that is really close to religious beliefs. It has to do with your worldview about the world, about what human beings are for, and so forth. And so what you think of humans and what you think of our sexual relationships really is an important part of educating children. So the thing at stake here is whether people are allowed to really educate children according to the values that they hold dear and the culture that matters to them, or is the federal government going to basically enforce an anti-religion religion on everybody? Very
important topic, Joy. Thanks for writing about it at the Federalist, and we'll keep reading you, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Joy Pullman, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show, but first, stay tuned for your Newsmax Now update.